Hello everyone, I am Nu-Trix, the synth guy, and today we're talking about a new Gforce software soft synth, Oddity 3. Oddity 3 is the Odyssey from A.R.P that has been released in the 70s. It's a classic analog synth. It actually came out in 3 different versions. The first version that came out was sued actually for the design of the filter was too close of the design of Moog, so they changed to a second one, and they quickly changed to a second one. And while they were able to sell their device without being sued, the second version internally they did not like it as much as the original sound that they have, so they redesigned a new filter to be closer to the sound of the first one, and that's the third version of it. It's the most commonly heard one because that's the one they sold the most of. And today, well, you can have the 3 of them in the plugin. And the question is it good? Does it sound good? And how do you make a sound with Oddity or an Odyssey? Because by learning one of the clone, either physical or virtual, they'll do the same way of making sound. But because this is a software, there's a little bit more stuff in it, like more polyphony, of course, and there's an advanced way of using LFOs, and that's a cool thing. So let's actually dive in. Let's go through how you make sound, the sound design of the Oddity 3, and we'll listen for some of the sound at the end of the video, and just have fun making sounds. Let's go. First, before we dive into all the values of the synthesis, let's just look at the bottom here. You've got poly mode, polyphony mode. You have monophonic, you have duophonic, legato, you have an undo and a redo. That's a cool thing because you could change something and actually redo it and undo it. Host for the tempo. Let's just step like that for now. One thing you can do also here, you can actually go here and change the size, which is always useful. You have a master volume, you've got macros you can use, you've got polyphony, and that's where it's different than the original because you've got a lot more polyphony than the original had. You click on the gear and you get access to the skin, the tail. You will allow tail off on host transport stop, so when you stop from somewhere else, the tail of the sound will actually stop like a natural synthesizer. Well, this is all technical, but I mean, by default, don't touch it. But if you want to change the skin of it, the skin we just saw was the Mark III. If you go back to Mark I, here you go. So I like the white color of it doesn't change the sound, okay? Changing the skin of it doesn't change the sound. What changes the sound of, as I said earlier, the filter is in the filter section here. So you've got the first one here, the second one, and the third one. So there's a difference between them. And when you move anything like that, you've got the information at the bottom. VCF type, and there's the 3 different numbers you can have. Now, if you click on these 2 buttons here while you move this, it might be misleading, but you're not changing these. You're actually changing the presets. So don't touch this thinking you're going to up and down just to one value. So I thought sometime when I moved here that I could have like a fine tuning. That's not it. It's really changing the preset. So if you want to change with softer value, you basically have to you go softer, or you double click on the number itself and then you type in the number you want if you want a really precise number. So that could be one way to do it. But don't press these 2 because you're basically this window. When you're not in edit mode, it's the browse window. So you can browse through the sounds and pick up the one you want, which is all good. You can filter, you can search, and you get sounds from the classic, of course, the Oddity 1, the 2, and the 3. And let's just close this window for now. Close. There you go. So the way it's laid out, you have these 3 here, you know. You've got the sub, that's the first one here. You have here a VCO, the first main one, I would say. The VCO2, you have it here. Okay, this section is all the VCO2. So if you look at how they work, well, you have the coarse value for the note itself. So how is it tuned? You have then the fine tuning. So when you click on it, you see at the bottom it's -12. You see here, -12. And then, of course, you can tune it from +36 to -36. And again, if you want to double click on it, go back to 0. If you double click here, you can say, well, I want it to -12. So an octave down, actually. I want it to be -12. Enter. Hey, why is it not working? Like this. Wait a sec. It's supposed to be working here. It is not working. A glitch, maybe? I don't know. I'll do it by hand. So you get the coarse and you get the fine tune. You get the keyboard. So keyboard off. So you're following the keyboard or not. You get an octave. Is it going to be 2 octave down? 2 octave up? Or it's going to be in the middle? You want a white noise or a pink noise? Is it going to glide? Is it going to glide with the VCO2? VCO2 takes time to go to the next note. And because there's some reaction to you hear it with the noise that goes in it. So it's actually interesting. I like it. So, and if I go back to the other one here. So the gliding is just for the first one. So do you want them to be gliding together, or you want the separate control over the second one? And the bend range is for the pitch bend. So what else do we have? We have also here control voltage. Do you want the pitch of this one to be controlled by, they say here, these thing here. Do you want it to be controlled by FM because it's frequency modulation? So it's the pitch that is modulated. Do you want the LFO to control it? And an LFO of a shape of a sine wave or a square wave? So if you go here, I'm going to hear. And you go, where's the speed for this? Well, the speeds for this, if you look at it, you know, okay, where is it? Well, you've got the frequency here, you've got a mixer between the two. Oh, there's a low frequency oscillator. There you are. So that's where the LFO is. So I can bring that speed down. Slower or faster. Okay, so it does the job. It does what you're supposed to be doing. So then you just select do you want a square or a sine wave because this LFO is generating the two shapes at the same time. So you switch between the one you want. And you can also use, for FM synthesis, you can also use sample and hold or the ADSR. So there's an ADSR that is here at the back, ADSR envelope generator. And you have an AR, attack release envelope generator with velocity and aftertouch. If you don't want this, well, of course, you don't use it. But if you want to have some of it, so. Like if you have attack, decay, sustain, you go. Hear that. So that's that frequency modulation going with the shape of your ADSR envelope here. Let's put it back to 0. Pulse width. So this is only useful if you're using a VCO. It's going to only affect the oscillator that is shaped by a square wave, the pulse width. So there's the width of the pulse. minimum width or maximum, which is 50, and do you want to use a modulation to it? So if I'm going to hear later on the sound of my VCO1 square, if I want to have this modulation from the LFO, let's go faster for the here. Okay, so that'll be a little bit of how you want to do it. And you can also have the ADSR control the modulation amount or shape if you want. Basically, this, what we just saw with oscillator 1, is the same thing with oscillator 2. You still have some little differences. Like here, you don't have a keyboard follow, you have the sync. Do you want the VCO2 to be synced to the VCO1? Synced, basically, if you don't remember what it is, it forces the oscillator 2 to re-trigger every time oscillator 1 finishes the cycle of one sound, of one note. So basically, it makes the oscillator 2 sound in tune with oscillator 1 while creating new shapes in it because it forces it to re-trigger. So it creates new shapes and create new timbres because of that, new harmonic content. So it's interesting to have this, what we used to, I mean, we're calling it the sync sound, but it creates more metallic harmonics in a way. So it's interesting, especially if you want to change the pitch of this one. Or if you do something like that. Again, we used here the ADSR to shape the pitch of this one from quickly going to volume and then bringing it down to the pitch. So let's put it back here just for fun. So you hear it. Okay, so that's that kind of the logic of how you would use this for the sync. And its sync is really useful when you have the pitch of the second oscillator, the one that is in sync, when you have it change, because you're basically changing the content of the harmonic content. So really interesting for this. When you get to this section here, you have the LFO. We just said it can be synced for the tempo of the song, of the host in this case, or not. And then when you move this, it becomes, you see here, it becomes musical values. You can re-trigger it. I personally do not like re-triggering for LFOs. Re-triggering is basically, well, it depends what you want to do. When you're re-triggering the LFO starts, if you want, from the zero value when it crosses zero, and it starts the movement every time you trigger a key. So it's basically becoming a kind of an envelope because it does the up and down movement starting only when you press a key. Whereas if you don't use it in re-trigger mode, means that the LFO is always vibrating, and when you press a key, you just catch it where it is in its movement. So it has more of a random value in a way because you're not re-triggering from zero every time, you're just catching it where it is. I personally prefer that, but it's because the way I'm using sound, that's what I'm using. But in some cases, it could be really useful to use it more like an ADSR because every time you press on it, it will start exactly at the same space. So it depends on how you look at it and what you're trying to create. But that's it. It is there. And here you have SNH mixer. So the sound is going to go through the sample and hold. Now, sample and hold very quickly is a way to create random sounds using original other sounds coming in. So you're basically sampling a value of the sound at one moment and you're holding it. So you create a you create different steps, that is the hold section, by just sampling one value at one point. So you create these, and they don't have to be musically scaled, you know, like on a scale of a song or of a musical scale. So they can be created weird stuff. And then it's another way to use an LFO. You have a lot of LFO that are called sample and hold shaped. Well, this is a real sample and hold system. It's a virtual sample and hold, but this is really what it means. So you can send a VCO1 into it. You can send the noise generator into it. You can send the VCO2 into it, a mix of them. And to trigger when you're going to sample and hold, either the keyboard can trigger it or the LFO can trigger it as the speed of the LFO does it. And so this is really a different way. Now I should bring this down here. I'm going to bring this back up. So here what we're doing, I'm going to bring that down. Okay. You have the mixer here. So this is how you're mixing stuff to go into the sample and hold. Now, where can you use sample and hold? Well, if you look at the bottom here, this one here has a sample and hold control here. This one. So you have the 3 different filters you can play with. The audio mixer you have here, you basically have the volume. You want to hear a lot of noise, the noise generator or the ring modulator. So the ring modulator comes from having a ring modulation between oscillator 1 and 2. If you don't want this, you bring that down. You have the sub volume, and then you decide you want to hear the square or the sawtooth, the VCO 1 or 2, the volume of each of it. So square or sawtooth, okay? Want to hear more of the first one, and then so on. You just mix and match the way you want. And the voltage controlled filter. So then after this, the whole thing here is sent into the filter. And how much you want the keyboard to control the filter position, or do you want the SH mixer to control the filter? Then you have, do you want the filter to be controlled by something? Because in here, there's no way out either end to go here to say, well, I want my cutoff point to move with the envelope. Well, you see here, there's 2 controls. You have SH. So let's actually go like this. So I'm going back again to SH being controlling the cutoff point or the LFO. And then I have the ADSR if I want, or the AR right now, or the ADSR. Okay, so you have these 2 here to choose between them. And if you had 0, well, you're basically having the value that is here. If you bring that up. So it's pretty interesting because you can have your VCA and VCO using the same envelope, or you can separate and use one of them being the attack and release, the other one being the attack, decay, and release. Then you have the voltage control amplifier, the VCA, the volume basically of the system. You have a VCA gain if you want it to be louder. You have, again, the control between, you want to have a R, so this one, the envelope, attack and release envelope, or the attack, decay, and release envelope. So you can choose between which one you want to use, and that's it. Other thing that's interesting is part of the ADSR envelope, you have at the bottom here options. So you can actually have the ADSR being re-triggered with low, actually keyboard gate. In this case, it's keyboard gate. So when you press on the keys, you're basically triggering the envelope. But you could have an LFO repeat if you want. And you could also have auto repeat. it becomes almost kind of a arpeggiator in a way. If I change the speed of the you can also put it in sync. Quarter of a beat. So now the LFO is in sync, controlling the speed of the retriggering of the ADSR. I've got this really cool, almost arpeggiator type of approach. And that's it. That's what this does. This is just a great little synth. No, that's not it. There's something more. Because this is the traditional way when you look at this. But if you look at the top here, the top section is something that never existed on the original one. So you've got distortion. So you get distortion for the tone. You've got delay. Reverb has also depth modulation, an LFO. The only thing I wish, there's a preset here, so you can play with different presets. I wish I had a preset for also the delay, because I could then save a couple of them and then play with it. Because, oh, you try this one, and finally you try this other one, and then go back to the original one. So I would like to have the same logic presets, but for the delay. Distortion's not a big deal because it's two knobs, but this could be interesting to have it. So that's here, but the one thing that is even nicer than this is this modular approach that you have with these two here, the XLFO and the XADSR. So let's say I want to modify, I don't know, let's go straight into the cutoff point here. I want to change the filter. I can say, well, I want to have this ramp up shape, and I want to affect directly this thing here. So you have to click on it. So then I'm changing the shape, the speed, and the time of it. So how much is going to affect it? Click the other one here. This one's going to be, simple and hold, random. So you can really control almost everything you want. VCA gain, or you just click on it and say, well, I want to have this one here. So, and if you want to see the amount of the depth of the effect, you see the blue color of the line, the deeper blue it is or the lighter blue it is will change as it becomes darker and darker back to black. It will basically just disappear, so it's not active right now because you just see the back line. But if you go back to the maximum, it becomes blue again, and it shows you that it's the maximum depth of modulation. So pretty cool. This is for the LFO, XLFO, and for each of them you can change. You see another value of this. You've got delay, you got simple and hold on this, you got the smooth, you got sync, you can resync your LFO. It's just like really massively weird and powerful. And the same thing here, but using ADSR. You got attack, decay, slope start, sync time, and release. That's a weird one. Everything is in synced. Slope time, slope starts. That's it. If you go like this, now you're controlling it. So, just again, a very powerful way to create, your sounds. And if you listen to some of what they do using this, it's really cool. You have these very, very efficient bass sounds. Just going to bass. I like these very low bottom. That you need headphones for this. You get very nice bass. Let's go for leads now. Now they're using the effects also. The massive sync sounds. That's it. That's the Oddity 3 from Gforce. If you want to have an A.R.P Odyssey, you should check the Oddity 3. Stay safe, make more music. See you soon, guys.